Hey, this is Mike from GoCellPhoneRepair.com, and this is the HTC One disassembly video. And these little things right here are what make this back panel so difficult to get off. This is where everything clips together down the sides. So fortunately, there is no adhesive inside this phone, and you can see I've marked off where these little clips are on the inside, so you have to get inside here, and it's very difficult to do this without damaging the LCD, the lens, the LCD, or the plastic backing on this phone. So you can see the customer actually tried to open this themselves, and they've kind of beat the whole thing up at this point, so I don't have a lot to lose, but I'm going to use it to demonstrate how you get inside here, in between here, very carefully with the pry tool, and it will take some time, and it does require some force. I'm not convinced that there isn't a better way to open this phone, but so far this is the best way that I have found to do it. If I come up with something different, I'll definitely update the video. So what we're doing is just going down in the side where these marks are. And if you're going to do an LCD on this, I'd recommend you buy a replacement back panel. There's a good chance you're going to damage that in the process. But what's nice about it is when you do finally get down inside here, and you may be able to do it without causing any damage if you're very careful and very slow about it. But once you pop these clips on the side, everything opens up very easily. Again, like I said, there's no adhesive on the back, so the only thing that holds this together are the little pieces here that clip into place, very similar to the design of the 8X and the HTC One X. But this one is just such a tight fit, it really takes a lot of effort to get it opened up. And as you might know by now, I don't really like using a metal tool right next to glass. I'd prefer to go with something that was a little softer, but you really are going to have a hard time getting in here with anything else but a very sturdy pry tool. But you can see here, once I pop that clip, and I'm going to get the second one up here on the side, as soon as you release these, the phone actually wants to open it up. It's actually opening up from the bottom right now. So we'll go ahead and repeat the process on the left-hand side of the phone here. And from the point where you get the back panel off, it's all pretty much downhill from here. This is the tough part. And you can see the plastic kind of started to fray a bit there. Again, this has been worked on a bit before I got a hold of it, so they did crack a few things here. And so once I get this final piece kind of opened up here, we should be able to get the whole assembly out from the panel. You can skip ahead if you don't want to watch this, but this is pretty much what we have to go through to get the phone open. There you can see it's starting to lift up on this side also. So again, just those three sections on each side, and they're kind of offset from each other. The plastic part's not that hard. It's only the metal part that grabs on in here that you really have to work at. And once you get in there, you should be able to pull the back off. Just kind of opens up from the bottom and slides out from the top. And from here, the rest is not very difficult. It's just complicated because there's so many parts in here. So make sure you keep track of your screws. This little plastic piece fell off too. This goes over the logic board, and it actually stuck to the back of the case. So we'll put that back in later on the reassembly video. So here you can see I've actually taken this completely apart and put it back together because I wanted to have an idea of what I was working with. But as usual, HTC just has a bunch of antenna wires in here that look like they were kind of an afterthought, and then lots of adhesive metallic type stuff that goes over the flex cable connectors and a few other things inside the phone. So it's just it's kind of typical of HTC nowadays, and it looks a little more intimidating than it actually is. As long as you stay organized, you should be able to get this apart. There's nothing else tricky about it other than getting the back panel off. Oh, and one other thing is there are a few hidden screws here, so you'll have to peel all this tape back to see what you're working with. And it can be difficult to get it to go back on. It's never going to look nice and new like it did when you first opened up the phone. But if you skip any of these steps, there may be some screws that you don't see that are holding something in, and if you start prying on anything too soon, you can damage the phone. So be very careful, and you don't have to go in any particular order on a lot of this stuff, but just make sure that you go through and remove all of the screws, all of the tape that I've taken off the phone. And again, make sure you stay organized. These screws are not interchangeable for the most part, so if you mix them up, you can have some problems and pretty much add, at the very least, add a lot to your project time. And that is actually the battery cable I just disconnected there. You will have a combination of pop connectors and flex cables that need to be unplugged. And you see we've got two hidden screws right here. And on this particular one, you actually want to pry it from what would be the right hand side right now. After I remove these two screws, it just kind of came up on its own, but it's going to flex up towards the top of the phone, which would be on my left hand side right now. So rather than going in from where I'm at right now, you actually want to go up underneath on the right hand side and kind of lift it with this motion over to the left. And this, I'm just kind of toying around with the buzzer right now. I would leave that for a moment until we get all the screws done, but that kind of pulls out from that direction. And in fact, we'll get to that in just a minute. Mainly we want to get all these screws out. And of course, disconnect all of these pop connectors. And that last one I did there on the top, which is actually for the power button, you'll notice when I get all the way inside, I did not transfer that over to the new assembly. It will need to be taken out eventually because that's going to move over to the new piece, which does not include the majority of this stuff with it. And your volume controls here, you'll see mine came out pretty easily because they have been removed before. You'll probably want to use a little bit of heat. Be very careful there. But again, very typical of HTC, they like to stick that stuff to the housing, so make sure you loosen that up and pretty much remove it away from that surface, otherwise you risk tearing that cable. Okay, so we've got 4 screws that hold this center piece here in, and again, even these 4 screws are not interchangeable. The 2 on the bottom appear to be a little bit longer than the ones on what would be the top of the phone. So again, want to keep all this stuff in order. And once you get those 4 out, you will have to deal with a little bit of adhesive at the bottom. But other than that, this just kind of lifts out down in that bottom area there. It's a little bit sticky, but you should be able to get it out as long as you have the screws removed. Set that aside. And then we're going to go ahead and pull this top board out. And it's got a few more screws, 3 in total that actually hold this into place. One's already been removed from the top corner of the phone, so we've got 2 more silver screws that are going to come out from here. And then you've also got a little plastic clip at the top that holds this thing into place, and again a little bit of adhesive under here. So make sure all your cables are free, all your flex cables are disconnected, power button and volume buttons are not glued to anything, and then right where I'm pointing there's a little clip that you kind of have to unhook from here. But if you wiggle this thing around, you should be able to work it out. Looks like I almost forgot to take the motor out there because it's stuck in the housing also. And then the camera you might have to work with a little bit, but the whole thing should just pull out. Not too difficult to get that piece away. And now we've got our battery with a whole bunch of adhesive underneath it. So this one's a little tricky. You definitely want to apply some heat to it. It's kind of a pain to get removed from here. We're also going to have to transfer the earpiece speaker and this bottom assembly here where the charging port is. So I would hit this with some heat, and then you'll see also right below the speaker there's a little white spacer of some sort that we're going to transfer over. But get in on the earpiece, pry it very gently, be careful. You don't want to get underneath there and poke a hole in it. You just have to wedge a screwdriver or an ice pick or something in there far enough so that you can kind of pull it up, and then you should be able to work that out. There is a little bit of adhesive on the bottom of it, but nothing major. And as long as it's still in good condition and transfers over, you can go ahead and reuse that adhesive at least one time. So we're going to move that directly across to our new LCD assembly. And then we've got this little white deal. I'm not even exactly sure what that is other than a spacer of some sort. It might prevent something from grounding out on the frame. And then you have your whole little charging port deal down here that has to come out. This is lots of fun. It's actually got adhesive under it. It's got tape on it. It's just kind of makes you wonder what they're doing with this phone sometimes. But I'm going to start with the battery first. So you will want to apply some heat and then get a soft tool if you can. You'll notice I'm starting with the metal tool here. I don't really like to do that. This battery is somewhat flexible, and you can see I'm kind of bending it a little bit there. And as soon as I can, I want to get underneath there with something that we can go in a lot further with, and then straighten that out, obviously, as soon as we get underneath, and pull it apart, and then we'll put some new adhesive in the housing that we're transferring it to. And it is, of course, stuck to this black stuff. They put this tape on the back of the battery. So we'll go ahead and get some 3M. You don't need super heavy duty adhesive, but you don't want the battery to be able to move around in there if the phone gets dropped, for example. So put a couple pieces in here. It doesn't have to be heavy duty, just something that'll hold it in place. And then we'll go ahead and transfer this bottom piece over. This is pretty straightforward. There is one tricky little thing, and there's a plastic piece that fell out immediately when I removed this. So if you take a look here in a minute, once this comes out, and again, it's going to have a whole bunch of this silver adhesive tape stuck to it. Just kind of one of the annoying things about this particular manufacturer. I'm sure they have their reasons, but you get to work around all this junk. Okay, and you see the little black piece kind of fell into the new frame there at the bottom, and it actually sits over. I'll pick that up in just a second. I got ahead of myself there. So before we put that piece in, you've got this black piece that sits right over the screw hole here, and there's really only one position that it will sit in properly, so you'll be able to tell where that goes. Make sure you don't forget that. And then we'll go ahead and put the port into the bottom here, and we can install our battery in just a second. And once we do that, we're just about ready to put everything back together. I will have a reassembly video for you within the next couple of days as soon as possible. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, found it helpful, please hit the like button. Feel free to share this, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you next time.